Good afternoon, evening, morning, night to all of my fellow friends and family out there. This is Murphy's Law, Gallifreyan Time Dragon, aka the Doctor, coming to you again in another video. What I thought I'd like to do this time is to actually do a book review, something I haven't done in a long time, if at all. The book I'm reviewing is, in fact, H.G. Wells' The Time Machine. Well, I know some of you may actually feel that it's rather cliche for a time traveler like me to be discussing the very first book on intentional time travel, but you'll find that this book actually has some surprises. Despite that, a lot of people think that The Time Machine is a good book of science fiction. While it is a good book, it was not intended as a book of science fiction. Outside the fact that the genre hadn't really been defined yet, the term wouldn't be used until 1920s, which is about 25 years after the book had been written. It was the fact that it wasn't supposed to be on par with, say, Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. While in many later years, Mr. Wells would be referred to as the English Jules Verne. It's a title that he disputed. While Jules Verne was discussing possibilities of present technology and science, H.G. Wells wasn't interested in that. He was just wanting to do a good story, something that you might get in a dream, something along the lines of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Now, I know some of y'all may think it's kind of odd for a book called The Time Machine, dealing with time travel, that's usually used in science fiction, not to be of science fiction, but if anything, the title is actually misleading. Yes, there is a time machine in the book, but all it is a means to an end. H.G. Wells really was writing about what he felt the future of humanity would be if it adopted Karl Marx's communism. I know you're probably thinking, how could that be? But in Karl Marx's communism, the idea was that there was two classes of people: the owners of production, the capitalists, and the actual factory workers, the proletariat. At some point in time, the proletariat, the workers, would actually seize all means of production and do away with the capitalists. This would lead to a state that would control all of production, where everything would be produced and used for the betterment of mankind, and it would be a nice, peaceful state. H.G. Wells was kind of skeptical of this, and he was proving this by this book. In the book, when he goes to the future, in this case 802,701, he finds the what remains of the humans at that time, the peace-loving Eloi, which are rather childish, somewhat stupid. They are what was left of the capitalists. They sing, they dance, they eat, they have sex, and that's it. There's no thought to them. There's no wants, no dreams or hopes. They just sort of exist. Although unknown to them, they have actually been bred by the Morlocks, which were the what was left of the proletariat or working class. They stay underground. They've become more like beasts. They still have machines down there, but they have simply bred the Eloi to be food. Now, in the book, yes, there is a time machine in the book, but it is so sparsely described that it's just sort of a means to an end. It can't exist, so there's no point in getting too detailed about it. The only details we know of are the first part is just the model that the time traveler, he doesn't have a name in the book, shows to his friends to demonstrate that he's found a way to travel through the fourth dimension, which is time. In this case, the device is a metallic framework scarcely larger than a small clock and very delicately made. There was some ivory and some transparent crystalline substance, and that's it. As far as the larger device that the time traveler actually uses to go through time, It was a larger edition of the device which we had seen vanish before our eyes. Parts were of nickel, parts were of ivory, some parts were filed, and other parts crystalline structure. Quartz it seemed to be. And again, that's it. We don't have a shape, we don't have a size. We know that there is a lever that's used to move it forward and back through time. We know that there is a saddle, or in this case, British slang for a bicycle seat. But we don't know what shape it is. We don't know if there's a motor, how the motor works. Nothing. Which is kind of odd since this book is called The Time Machine. You would think there'd be a better description of it. In fact, if you look at the different publications of The Time Machine, the novel, throughout the years, those that have, I guess, asked artists to describe how they felt the time machine could look like and have not used any stills or any drawings representing the machine used in the 1960s movie. For those that simply artists use their imagination, you'll find that the description is all over the place. One has a guy sitting in a device with two rings, one along the x-axis, one along the z-axis. One is in a blue seat where the edges seem to be melting. One is in a long, sinuous device that's all metal and smooth. There's no corners, no points. One is in like a box affair with legs. It's like no two of these illustrations are alike because the description of it is so vague that it could look like anything. But you would almost think that the time machine would have a little more, except that it's time travel. It's so far fetched that there's no possibility. I mean, even now in 2023, we don't have a way of moving through time backwards or forwards. It could be stated that we might find a way to go back in time, but by going around Einstein's laws of special relativity and moving faster than the speed of light, that could possibly take us back in time. But the unfortunate thing is that no one has ever discussed how would you go forward in time. There's no science whatsoever. I mean, we're supposed to go slower than the speed of light. Well, we already do. Everything does. But we still go at the rate of 1 second per second towards the future. There's no way to speed up that process. And the thing with H.G. Wells' time machine, the device that's used in the novel, is that it is a rather dangerous device. While it can move through time, it really cannot move through space unless physically, like pushed or pulled. Now, the problem with this is that once you get started, once you build the time machine, it occupies a certain place in time, of so many feet. 185 degrees north, 7 minutes, 16 seconds. By 45 degrees west, 17 minutes, 3 seconds. It occupies a certain geographical location. Once that machine moves through time, it is no longer there. But the problem is whenever it lands, it still has to occupy that exact same spot. Now, considering that he moved through time 800 to the year 802,701, that spot has remained empty all that time. There's nothing preventing anything else from being put in that spot, or there being earthquakes. And the earth and whatever was on top of it having risen to where it fills up that spot, or there to be some sort of explosion, and there is now a crater. So the fact is that where he lands, I should say when he lands, he has to make sure that A, there is nothing else in that spot, and B, there is still land at that same elevation, at that same place, so that his machine will occupy exactly the same spot that it did without falling. or without somehow his and the machine's atoms merging with whatever has appeared in that spot, in which case there would be a gigantic explosion which would destroy the machine and kill the traveler. These are things that I never thought I'd be discussing when reading this. I've seen the movie, both the 1960 and the newer 2003 movie, but like everybody else, oh, well, it's a great science fiction book. And then I started reading that and the foreword that was regarding H.G. Wells' life and his philosophy, and then suddenly come to read that it's not science fiction. Like, well, that's news to me. But that's it for me for today. So that's how I've read and what I've gotten out of, if you will, The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. If any of you have any other books that you'd like me to review, or any movies or anything, please let me know. This is Murphy's Law, Gallifreyan Time Dragon, Time Traveler signing off. I hope all of you have a good time, that all of you are doing well and hanging in there. I know that times are tough. I know that this can bring you down. You can be depressed, but just hang in there. You are worth it. Don't give up. For my sake or for your own, you are an amazing individual, all of you. I love you all. Have a good day. Bye.